You're looking to get smart, fast on the big sports stories, right? Cut through all the noise.
Get the real insights.
Exactly. Well, you've landed in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the discussions around quarterback Shad Sanders.
Yeah, where he might actually land in the NFL draft.
We found this really interesting YouTube analysis. It lays out a whole potential draft scenario for him, and that's what we're going to unpack.
Right. And what's fascinating, I think, about this video is how it sort of reframes the conversation about Shad Sanders.
How so?
Well, we've all heard him mention, potential top 3 pick, definitely early first round.
Sure.
But now the talk seems to be settling more around, say, the 9th spot.
Okay.
So the question this deep dive looks at, based on the video, isn't just, is he falling? It's more why that might be his range now.
Okay, let's really get into that, this idea of a fall. Because, yeah, if you followed the draft buzz at all, Shad Sanders, top 3, that felt like almost a given for a while. So seeing him maybe go at 9, it makes you wonder, what changed? Is it about him? Or is something else happening right at the top?
Well, the video makes a pretty compelling case that it's less about Shad Sanders himself losing value and more about the teams holding those really early picks.
The specific circumstances.
Exactly. They paint a picture of the top 3 picks shaking out in a very particular way.
Okay, so walk us through that. What's the video's prediction for those first few picks?
Their mock draft has Cam Ward going number 1 overall to the Titans.
Okay, Ward at 1, then what?
Then they look at picks 2 and 3, so Cleveland and the Giants. And the video suggests pretty strongly they'll be targeting Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter.
Oh.
Yeah, the analysis identifies those 2 guys as like the consensus top 2 players in the whole draft. Not just QBs, but overall talent.
That's interesting because the implication there, I mean, even if Cleveland and the Giants could use a quarterback, and a lot of people think they could,
right?
This video is arguing Carter and Hunter are just too good, too much talent to pass on, even for a QB.
That's the argument presented, yeah. It suggests a scenario where the sheer talent on the board pushes Sanders down slightly, almost regardless of how those teams individually rate him as a quarterback.
Okay.
It really highlights that idea that draft position isn't always just about the player in isolation. It's about who else is available, team needs, how the board falls, all that stuff.
That makes a lot more sense than just saying, oh, he's falling.
Right.
Okay, so if that top 3 scenario happens, where does the video see Shad Sanders potentially landing? You mentioned that 6 to 9 range.
Right.
The Raiders are at 6. What's the thinking there?
The video touches on the Raiders, but kind of quickly suggests they're maybe less likely to go QB at 6.
Why is that?
Mostly because they just gave Geno Smith that contract extension.
Ah, right.
So the thinking is they've sort of addressed their immediate QB situation. Maybe they look elsewhere with that high pick.
Okay, that tracks. So, if not Vegas, that brings it to pick 9. The New Orleans Saints. This feels like where the video really zeroes in.
It does seem to be a key spot in their analysis.
What makes it such a potential fit? What's the logic?
Well, this is where it gets pretty interesting. The video basically asks, okay, will the Saints, with Coach Kellen Moore, trust their process enough to take Shad Sanders at 9, even if they have other needs?
And the video thinks.
It leans towards yes. They seem pretty positive about that fit. Potentially an excellent match, actually.
The Kellen Moore factor keeps coming up. Why is that connection, the coach and the player, seen as such a good potential pairing in this analysis?
Several things. First off, Kellen Moore's track record, developing quarterbacks.
Right.
They point specifically to Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, guys who really thrived under Moore.
That's a strong resume.
Definitely. It suggests Moore has a real knack for identifying and nurturing QB talent.
Okay, what else makes it a good fit besides just Moore's history?
The video also talks about the bigger picture, the team structure, even the best QB needs help.
Of course. O-line, weapons.
Exactly. Offensive line, good receivers, a solid run game. The analysis suggests the Saints, under Moore, would focus on building that kind of support system.
And wasn't there something in the video about what Shad Sanders himself is looking for? His preferences?
Yeah, absolutely. The video mentions reports that Shad Sanders is, a really cerebral guy, engaged in the strategy, the X's and O's.
He wants input.
It sounds like it. He reportedly wants a collaborative environment, where his ideas are heard, valued, alongside strong coaching, obviously. He wants to be pushed, but also feel like a partner in the offense.
Okay. And the video basically says the Saints, with Moore could offer that kind of environment.
That's the interpretation, yeah. That the culture there, Moore's coaching style, it would align really well with what Sanders is reportedly looking for.
So it paints this picture where if he's there at 9 and they take him,
Yeah.
it could just click. Team needs, player preferences, coaching style, everything lining up.
That's the potential the video sees. A really synergistic fit that could lead to, real long-term success.
Now, the video doesn't completely lock him into New Orleans, right? There were other possibilities mentioned. Pittsburgh.
Right. The Pittsburgh Steelers also get brought up. A bit later, obviously. They pick at 21.
What's the thinking on the Steelers?
Well, it's presented as another really appealing option. I mean, the history of the Steelers franchise, playing for Coach Mike Tomlin, that's a big draw.
You can definitely see why that would be attractive, yeah.
Huge appeal.
So how might he end up there, according to the video? Just falls to 21.
That's one way, yeah. If he's still on the board when they pick. But the video also floats the idea of Pittsburgh maybe getting aggressive.
Trading up?
Trading up, yeah. If they really believe Sanders is their guy. They also toss in the possibility, kind of briefly, of teams like Cleveland or the Giants trading back into the late first round from the early second round spots. That could mix things up, too.
Okay, so still a lot of moving parts possible for Sanders. Let's pivot then. Back to the top. Cam Ward. The video projects him #1 overall. Why him? What makes him the guy?
The video really emphasizes his college production, especially that season at Miami. Broke single-season records, passing yards, touchdowns.
Impressive stats.
And apparently, he led the entire country in explosive pass plays, big plays downfield, that kind of stuff, combined with the talent you see on tape. It makes a strong case for QB1.
And the projection is Titans #1, coached by Brian Callahan. The video made a point about Callahan's background with QBs. Why is that seen as important?
Callahan's got this really solid reputation for working with quarterbacks and, getting the best out of them.
He's been around some big names.
Yeah, the video mentions he's been on staffs that coached Drew Brees, Matthew Stafford, Peyton Manning. I mean, that's quite a list.
Wow, yeah.
So the pedigree suggests he really understands what it takes to develop a quarterback at the NFL level.
Now, the video brought up something interesting about young QBs, especially high draft picks. This pressure cooker they step into. Expected to perform immediately.
Right, it's tough.
How does the video suggest coaches handle that? Balancing immediate needs with long-term development.
It acknowledges that challenge. The coaching approach they kind of highlight is about finding things the QB can do well right away.
Build confidence early.
Exactly. Let them have some early success, build on those strengths, let them play instinctively in those areas first, and then you gradually add more, refine the other parts of their game.
Makes sense.
They mentioned guys like Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, as QBs who maybe benefited from that kind of approach, focusing on strengths initially.
So build them up. Don't just throw them in the deep end with everything.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Ward and Callahan. The video sounded pretty optimistic about that specific pairing. Why do they think that match would work so well?
A lot of it seems to be about Callahan's coaching philosophy meshing with Ward's skill set. Callahan's seen as a coach who builds the offense around the QB's strengths.
Instead of forcing a square peg into a round hole.
Right. And Ward is described as really versatile. He can work under center, run different passing schemes, use his legs, make throws from weird angles.
He gives Callahan options.
A lot of options, yeah. It allows Callahan to tailor things specifically to what Ward does best. And they also mentioned the off-field fit, personalities clicking being important too.
That versatility. The video even compared his playing style to a current superstar, didn't it?
Yeah, they did. Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. High praise. What's the similarity?
It's that ability to make those unconventional throws off-platform, generating power from awkward body positions. That kind of improvisational playmaking ability that Mahomes is known for.
That style can sometimes get labeled reckless, though, right?
Oh,
especially early on. Did the video talk about that with Ward?
It did, yeah. It acknowledges that playmakers like that can sometimes look like they're taking big risks. They drew the parallel to early Mahomes again, how some people called him reckless.
So what's the key then?
The key, according to the video, is having a coach who gets it. Someone who can guide him, refine the decision-making, challenge him, but without crushing that creativity. That's the balancing act.
Finding that line between structure and improvisation.
Exactly. You want the smart decisions, but you don't want to coach the special playmaker right out of him.
And they use a specific game example for Ward, showing he can bounce back from mistakes.
Yeah. The game against Cal, apparently he threw a bad pick in the third quarter across his body, didn't work out.
Oh.
But the video really emphasized how he responded. Came back in the fourth quarter, showed resilience, led scoring drives, made big throws under pressure.
So he learned from it in-game, showed toughness.
Right, that ability to shake off a mistake and still deliver when it counts, that's huge for a young QB.
Definitely critical for the NFL. And didn't the video wrap up with a little historical fact about the Titans?
It did, yeah. Just a quick note that the Titans actually haven't had the #1 overall pick since, wait for it, Earl Campbell back in 1978.
Oh, that long ago.
Yeah. So it just adds a bit of historical weight to them potentially taking Cam Ward #1 this year.
Okay, this has been really good digging into that video's analysis. So just to kind of wrap it up for everyone listening,
Let's sum it up.
the Shad Sanders discussion, it's maybe less about him falling and more about how those top few picks might go, focused on non-QBs.
Right. Driven by Carter and Hunter potentially going 2 and 3.
And the Saints, with Kellen Moore at pick 9, emerge as a really strong potential fit for Sanders, matching needs and maybe his preferences too.
A very compelling spot, yeah.
Meanwhile, Cam Ward is the video's projected #1 pick to Tennessee because of the huge college production, the playmaking.
And that potential pairing with Brian Callahan, given Callahan's QB development history, looks really promising on paper.
Got it. Hopefully this deep dive gave you all a much clearer picture of those key quarterback storylines heading towards the draft, based on what that analysis was saying.
Absolutely. A concise but thorough look at the thinking from that source.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. We talk about Shad Sanders, maybe more cerebral, collaborative, and Cam Ward, the dynamic playmaker. Considering those different styles and what they might look for, what are the real differences in team setups, coaching styles, philosophies, and best help different types of young quarterbacks succeed in today's NFL? Something to think about as we see where these guys land.